please use all your life savings to build this beautiful luxury home right on the coastline to be used as an Airbnb. And then finally, after years of work, when it's all done, tell the like button that they can stay in the Airbnb for the first time. They're the first guest, all for free. Go enjoy it. But don't tell them about all the human-hating, highly aggressive honey badgers you've hid under all the beds. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. Late on the evening of November 15th, 1884, a 20-year-old man named John Lee helped his sister Elizabeth clear the dining room table in the English manor where they both worked. John was a butler at this manor, and his sister Elizabeth was a cook. And the manor itself had a name. It was called The Glen, and it was this gorgeous property right on the beach in the seaside community in England. Now, years ago, the Glen had been much more grand, and in fact, the King and Queen of England had at one point came to stay at the Glen. But recently, the Glen and the family who owned it had fallen on hard times. The staff was down to a skeleton crew of just John, his sister Elizabeth, and 2 elderly maids, which meant virtually all the physical labor at this property fell to John to take care of. So, on this night, John was lugging a huge pile of heavy china in his arms to bring out to the kitchen, and as he was doing this, he was trying to talk to his sister, who was also kind of helping clear the table, about an upcoming dinner party they were going to host at the Glen for some very important lawyers and politicians. But as John tried to talk to Elizabeth, Elizabeth just wasn't really reacting. She was kind of staring off into space, and she was only carrying 1 or maybe 2 plates off the dining room table, while John is carrying like 50. And so John was becoming really annoyed with his sister. I mean, she's not really helping, and she's ignoring him. And so John was about to complain to his sister about her
Hi,
behavior,
bird boy.
when suddenly she turned around and she apologized to him and said, "You know what? I'm sorry I'm acting this way. I just don't feel very good, and I really think I should go lie down." Now, John was about to be really annoyed at this, but then he noticed his sister had her
Yeah, your
hands
new
kind
name
of
is Bird Boy.
reflexively over her stomach. And John knew his sister was pregnant, and so suddenly he felt like, okay, the reason she's acting this way must be because of her pregnancy. And so he did not press the issue. Now, you need to understand that Elizabeth did not tell John that she was pregnant, nor did she tell anybody else in the house, because the owners of the Glen were very traditional and very religious,
Cacao.
and they almost certainly would not approve of Elizabeth's pregnancy because she wasn't married. At the time in England, it was not okay to have babies out of wedlock. It was viewed as like this
That's fucking
totally taboo
hilarious.
thing that you should never do. But despite Elizabeth's best efforts to conceal her pregnancy, John and the other 2 elderly maids very quickly realized what was going on.
Good, how
because
are
every
you?
morning they would see Elizabeth vomiting because of morning sickness. And so when they approached her and said, "Hey, it looks like you're pregnant, what's going on here?" Elizabeth refused to talk about it. She did not admit to being pregnant. She just kind of said, "Leave me alone." I mean, John didn't even know who the father was. Like, Elizabeth did not want to talk to anyone about her pregnancy. But despite all that, John and the other 2 maids really wanted to support Elizabeth and help her get through this pregnancy, without being found out and
Elizabeth is a
fired
hoe.
because of it. So when Elizabeth said to John that she just wanted to go lie down because she was feeling sick, he didn't press the issue, and he just told her, "You know what? I'm fine. I'll finish up. You go lay down. I hope you feel better." By 11 p.m., John was nearly done with all of his chores and he was getting ready for bed when one of the elderly maids came into the room and told John it was time for their nightly prayers. And without any hesitation, John put down the silverware that he was polishing and followed the maid into the living room where one of the owners of the Glen was waiting in her nightclothes. The owner was a 68-year-old woman named Emma Case, and at night she really liked to lead a nightly prayer with her staff. It was something she really enjoyed doing. Now, John was not a very religious person, but he really cared about Emma, and so he agreed to do these nightly prayers really just to make her happy. I mean, after all, Emma had basically saved him on multiple occasions. John had begun working for Emma 6 years earlier when he was just 14
Feet are
years
sore
old.
from work. I'm sorry
And
to hear
John,
that,
he was kind of
baby.
like a rough kid and a troublemaker, but Emma, she just had a soft spot for him. And at some point, when John admitted to Emma that he was really interested in traveling the world someday, Emma would help him get into the British Royal Navy. And for 2 years, John very happily served in the military and did get to see the world. But at the 2-year mark, John came down with this terrible case of pneumonia, and it forced him to leave the military early. And so when John was medically discharged, he came back home and he had no idea what he was going to do. I mean, he anticipated staying in the Navy for some time, not just 2 years. But luckily, Emma stepped in again, and she gave this glowing recommendation of John to one of her very wealthy friends, basically saying, hey, you should hire John. And this wealthy friend of Emma's agreed and hired John, and John was so happy, so relieved. I mean, Emma has totally picked him up again. But after getting hired, John would make a totally stupid mistake. He would steal this really expensive plate from this wealthy friend, and he would get caught. And this wealthy friend, they didn't just scold John and make him give the plate back. They got the police involved, and ultimately John would be sent to prison for 6 months for the theft. And when John got out again, he was certain nobody
Never
was gonna
bite the
hire
hand
him.
that
I mean,
feeds
he just
you.
went to jail for stealing. But that was when Emma, for a third time, stepped in and helped John again. Emma was a big believer in forgiving people and giving them additional chances when they screwed up. And so she said to John, you know what? I understand you made a mistake. Why don't you come back to the Glen and work for me? You can be our butler. John couldn't believe it. I mean, he knew he did not deserve this chance, especially from Emma, who's now been done wrong by him multiple times. But, you know, he was so grateful, and he said to Emma, you know, I'll take this, of course, and I will do anything you want, you know, no matter what. I will do the best possible job. I'm not going to screw this up. And so far, that was exactly what John had done since coming back to the Glen. He did whatever Emma wanted.
Anything?
And that included nightly prayers. So on this night, after John walked into the dining room, he took a seat next to Emma at the table, and then after Elizabeth and the other 2 elderly maids
Oh,
took their
nice.
seats at the table,
What are you gonna do on
they
your
all
days
held
off?
hands and they bowed their heads, and then Emma began to lead them in prayer. When the service was over, the 2 maids got up and headed to the kitchen to make a cup of hot cocoa for Emma. Emma typically stayed up really, really late, basically later than anybody else in the house, and she liked to drink hot cocoa and just sit by
I
the
need to grab a
fire,
drink.
you know, read and write letters. It was just kind of her time to be alone and to be left alone. And so after the maids had gone, John stood up too, and he said goodnight to Emma and told her to enjoy the rest of her night. And then he made his way into the kitchen, and he went into the pantry, which doubled as his bedroom. And once in the pantry, he pulled out his cot, climbed under the covers, and he fell asleep. A few hours later, at about 3:30 in the morning, John suddenly woke up in the pantry to the sound of somebody screaming outside the door. And so John, you know, he burst out of the pantry door, and right away he's looking in the kitchen, and it's just completely covered in smoke. He can barely see, but not far from him in the kitchen was
All
his
right, I'm
sister
back.
and also one of the maids. And they were the ones screaming. And they were actually screaming at John to wake up and go get everybody. We need to get them out of the house and get some help. And so John, you know, his first instinct is, okay, clearly there's a fire or something, and Emma, you know, she's upstairs and she could be in trouble. And so John, you know, he instinctively ran towards the stairs and began going up to the second floor to save Emma. But as he went up the stairs, the other maid was coming down the stairs looking totally frantic, and she would tell John that she was just in Emma's bedroom and she couldn't see Emma anywhere, and her bed was totally on fire. And so she didn't know if Emma was even in there, but it didn't look good. And so John, at this point, he turned and went with that maid back to the kitchen,
Hello?
where they linked up with John's sister and that other maid, and the 4 of them filled up buckets of water and tried to run back up the stairs to attempt to put out the fire that was in Emma's bedroom. But by the time they got back upstairs, the fire up there had really spread, and there was like a wall of fire right in front of Emma's bedroom. So there was no way to really get through it, and their little buckets of water did nothing. And so even though they hated the idea of leaving Emma potentially behind, the 4 of them knew they couldn't do anything more. And so finally, the 4 of them turned and began running downstairs to evacuate. And as they ran through the dining room on the first floor, they would find Emma. She was laying on the ground, sprawled out, and it was obvious to all 4 of them that she was clearly dead. However, it was also obvious that the fire had not killed her. She had clearly been hacked to death. She had all these horrible wounds on her head that looked like somebody had taken an axe basically to her head, and her neck was so deeply cut, it was almost like someone tried to remove her head. John and Elizabeth and the 2 maids just stood there staring
Emma dead.
in
She dead.
shock at Emma, not even sure what to do. And then one of the maids just started screaming, and then all 4 of them just turned and ran out of the house. Eventually, some neighbors, some local fishermen, and members of the Coast
Yuck.
Guard were able to put out the fire at the Glen. But this was not just a fire, this was a murder. And so when police came to investigate, suspicion immediately fell on John. This was back in the day, well before forensic science was used in investigations. And so at the time, the way police kind of figured out who done it is by intuition and gut feeling and assumptions. I mean, it was basically
John looks
like
guilty as fuck.
pseudoscience. But at the time, that's how it was. And quickly, the police determined that whoever had killed Emma and inflicted these horrible injuries on her, they had to be really strong. And so the assumption was, John is the only man in the house, and so very likely the strongest person in the house. And so he must have been the one to do this, because it didn't look like anybody else had the strength to do this. Also, the investigators found these blood
What do you
trails
think, bad
underneath the
boy?
rubble from the fire that showed Emma had not actually been murdered where she was found on the ground.
I think
in
John
the
did
dining
it.
room. Instead, she had actually been killed in the hallway near the stairs, which was not far from the pantry where John slept. And basically right outside of John's pantry
Red boy.
door was a bloody hatchet and a bloody knife. And on top of all of that, investigators also determined that the fire had been set intentionally, and the person who set it had used this particular type of oil that was very flammable, and they had doused it all over the house and ignited it. And it turned out the only place where this oil was located inside of the Glen was inside of the pantry where John slept. So, on the same day this whole fire breaks out and they find Emma dead,
In the pantry.
John was arrested for Emma's murder.
Knew it.
Hey everybody, if you've not heard by now, our flagship podcast, Amazon Music, please, if Blur was here to talk to him, your choice episode, and then please. The next day, John was in his jail cell, and a guard came down the hall and rapped on the bars and told John he had a visitor. His lawyer was here to talk to him, but John was confused because he didn't have a lawyer, so he had no idea who this was. But regardless, the guard opened up the cell and he led John down the hallway to this room, and when John walked in, he saw there was this man who was very well dressed and very handsome. He was sitting at this table, and clearly he was waiting for John. And John, at first he didn't really know who this guy was, but then it dawned on him that he knows who this guy is, and it made no sense that he was here to defend John. The man's name was Reginald Templer, and he was a very successful lawyer, highly respected in the area, and he also happened to be one of Emma's absolute closest friends. So Reginald Templer, Emma's close friend, the woman who's been murdered, is here to defend the person who's accused of killing Emma? It just didn't make any sense. But eventually, Reginald gestured for John to come in the room and sit down. And so John just kind of made his way in and he sat down, and Reginald immediately said, "John, I know you did not kill Emma. That's why I'm here." John was so relieved, and before long, he was pouring out all the information he could about everything he could recall about the night of the fire and the murder.
I don't think you killed her.
As he did, Reginald took all these notes, and he began creating a framework for John's defense. And so by the time John was back in his jail cell, he couldn't help but feel kind of optimistic that maybe with Reginald's help, he could actually beat this thing and prove he didn't do this. But John's relief would be short-lived. His first court appearance went extremely well. Reginald showed up in a fancy suit, and he was just completely on his game and just ripped the prosecution apart and basically said their entire case was just circumstantial, and he rattled off all these legal precedents, which John didn't really understand, but he looked up and saw the judge definitely knew these precedents and was impressed with what Reginald was doing. And then also Reginald would say that the police did a terrible job investigating. They basically didn't investigate and just jumped to conclusions that it was John. And so as Reginald is basically destroying the prosecution, Reginald looked over at the prosecutor, and he could tell the prosecutor looked really nervous. And so John was really starting to feel confident that Reginald was exactly what he needed. But on the day of the second court appearance, Reginald just didn't show up with no explanation. He didn't contact anybody. And so John just sat there waiting to see what was going to happen. The judge delayed for as long as he could. But eventually, when, Reginald still didn't show up, the judge looked to John and said, "I'm sorry, but you're going to have to defend yourself." Which, of course, John did not know how to do. I mean, he barely had even gone to school, let alone studied law. And from there, things only got worse for John. Reginald continued to miss court dates with no explanation, and then on other times, he would show up to court, but instead of being this fantastic, very sharp lawyer, he kind of acted like a maniac. He would start all these unnecessary fights with the judge over totally irrelevant matters like how to pronounce a particular word, and then when he had witnesses on the stand, his line of questioning didn't make any sense. He would ask things like, well, what did you have for breakfast today, and what's your favorite color? And then finally, Reginald just withdrew altogether from the case, leaving John with no lawyer at all, which admittedly might have actually been an improvement for John. After Reginald withdrew, another lawyer found out about it and took pity on John and volunteered to take on the case. But it was on very short notice, and this other lawyer had good intentions, but was not nearly as skilled as Reginald was when he was kind of on his game on that first day. And so really quickly, this lawyer kind of fumbled the case, and then when it went to the jury to decide whether or not John was guilty, it took them less than an hour to come back and say, oh yeah, he's guilty, he killed Emma. And so John was sentenced to death by hanging. For the next 3 months, John sat in his jail cell waiting for his execution. And as he waited, he continually insisted that he really was innocent and that ultimately God would protect him. Finally, February 23rd, 1885 rolled around. This was the day of John's execution, except something very weird happened on this day. When John was led from the jail to the gallows where he was going to be executed, the hangman could not get the gallows to work. The trap
Hello,
door
thank you
in
for the follow.
gallows where the condemned stands, where it's supposed to open up and they fall down
Baked
and the
Captain?
noose breaks their neck. Yeah, that trap door, it would not function whenever John was standing on it. Now, when John was moved off the trap door, it functioned perfectly fine. It was only when he was on that trap door that it would not work. And so think about this. Pretend you're John. 3 different times, the hangman led him onto that trapdoor. They put the noose around his neck, put a bag over his head, asked him for his last words, and they threw that lever, and each time John is expecting to die, and it's not working. Finally, after the 3rd failure, the hangman just called off the execution, and then actually a judge would weigh in and say, you know what? We cannot possibly attempt for a 4th time to execute John. This constitutes cruel and unusual punishment, and so they swapped his sentence from a death sentence to 22 years in prison. And none of this would make any sense until one day, 6 years after Emma's murder, when John, by this point, was just sitting in a jail cell and everybody had forgotten about him. On that day in 1890, a group of very high society type people, politicians and lawyers and rich people, they all gathered in this misty cemetery not far from the Glen. The group was in the cemetery for the burial of a very important and well-respected man who had died after slowly going insane. And as the priest finished his final blessing, the mourners began chucking handfuls of dirt into the grave, and as they did, one of them said quietly but out loud, "Today we have buried a murderer." Here's what many people believe really happened on the night of November 15th, 1884, when Emma was killed. At the time of Emma's murder, Elizabeth's pregnancy was very scandalous, but not just for Elizabeth. It was also scandalous for the father of the baby, the father who nobody knew except for Elizabeth.
It's Reginald.
Scandalous
Reginald
to his
killed
father
her.
Because, like Elizabeth, he was worried what society would think if they found out he was having a baby out of wedlock, especially with Elizabeth, who basically from a societal standpoint was kind of below his station. But despite all that, the father of the baby did not attempt to distance himself from Elizabeth. Instead, on the night of the murder, the father of the baby actually decided to sneak into the Glen to see Elizabeth. But Emma was still awake. She was up late, drinking her hot cocoa, writing and reading, and she heard the sound of the father coming into her home. And so she got up to go investigate, and she would eventually find the father up in the hallway right outside of Elizabeth's bedroom. And remember, Emma is very traditional, she's very conservative and religious, and she's seeing this strange man in her house clearly going into or coming out of Elizabeth's room, and she was so offended and angry, and so Emma just began screaming at this guy to get out of her house, and if he didn't, she was going to tell the whole world about this illicit relationship. And then Emma walked up and hit this guy right in the face. And at this point, the father just snapped. And he flew into this rage and he began screaming back at Emma. And then he grabbed a hatchet that was on the wall right near the pantry. He pulled it off and he brought it down right on top of Emma's head. And Emma crumpled to the ground. And the man, he's looking down at Emma and he's realizing he's inflicted this horrific injury on Emma. And if she doesn't die, she's gonna tell someone. And then this father is gonna go to jail, if not worse. So in a moment of panic, this father runs into the kitchen, gets a kitchen knife, comes back and he finished Emma off. Once she was deceased, he dragged her back to the dining room where she normally did her reading and writing, and then he doused her and the whole house in that weird oil that he found in the pantry where John was sleeping, and after getting the whole house covered in it, he ignited it, and then he ran out of the house. But over the next 6 years, Emma's killer felt
I don't know
so
how you could
bad
even
about
do
what he
that.
had
Like,
done, both
I'd
to
start
Emma
vomiting
and
if I
then
did
nearly
that to
killing
somebody. I would
Elizabeth
not
and
be
his
able to
unborn
do that. So
child, that he
fucking
went
nasty.
completely insane, and this caused his physical health to totally fail, and he died. But right before he died, as he's laying in his deathbed, he began ranting and raving about all the things he regretted in his life, including murdering a woman at a big, beautiful seaside estate. Basically, he was admitting to killing Emma.
What was that
and he did
noise?
it
I don't
in
know
the
what that
company
was.
Of all the people who would then be at his burial, and so that's why as they're throwing the dirt onto his casket, they're saying, "Today we buried a murderer." The killer's identity was none other than Reginald Templar, John's lawyer. Now, nobody knows if Reginald took John's case because he felt guilty and wanted to prevent an innocent man from going to jail, or if he just wanted to sabotage John's case to ensure he did go to jail to protect himself. Like, we don't know. Either way, though, it was during the course of this trial that Reginald began his descent into madness, which would ultimately lead to his death. Some people believe the reason the gallows malfunctioned every time John stood on that trapdoor and it wouldn't open was because of divine intervention. That God or a god or some deity came to Earth and literally interfered with the execution to spare John's life. And the reason people think that is because, John really was an innocent man and he did not deserve to die. John would serve all 22 years of his sentence, and then when he got out, he became famous for being the man who could not be hanged. John would eventually get married and he would move to America, where he would live a very happy and quiet life until he died at the age of 81. Hey everybody, as mentioned earlier, right now you can listen to over 100 news stories on the Mr. Ballin podcast.
That's a long life for back then.
It's available on all of them. And so right now, I'm going to play you a clip from an episode of the Mr. Ballin podcast. It's called Rendezvous in Capistrano. Enjoy. At 10 p.m. that night,
Good for John.
Deputy
Good for old
Tony
Johnny
Castillo
boy.
of the Orange County Sheriff's Department was in his cruiser out on his usual rounds. Deputy Castillo eased off the gas when he noticed a silver Dodge Stratus car pulled over in the breakdown lane on a rural highway outside of San Juan Capistrano. It was pitch black and there wasn't much traffic. Castillo figured there wasn't a reason for anyone to stop right there unless they were having car trouble, so he decided he would walk over and see if they needed any help. Castillo pulled his cruiser in behind
Johnny
the
boy.
car. He could see that the car's engine was still running and the high beam lights were on, and the passenger side
Here's
door
Johnny.
was wide open. Just ahead of the car on the side of the road, Castillo saw a pole with an emergency phone box attached to it. He thought maybe the passenger in this car had jumped out of the car after it pulled over to go use that call box to call for help, because maybe their car had broken down. But then Castillo noticed a woman's bare
Oh
foot
shit, hi,
sticking
hello.
out
Sorry, I
of
just
that
saw the
open
chat. I didn't
passenger
see the
door,
Twitch thing.
and
I
he
will
knew
hydrate.
Right then, something had to be wrong. Castillo radioed to let dispatch know
Hi,
what he
Samara Flame. What is that name from? Where'd you
found.
get that? Wait, are you the one that I played? Apex with earlier. Is this Glenn? Am I talking to Glenn? Talking to Glenn. Apex with Glenn. What should we watch next, guys? It's a lazy night tonight.
If you grew up in the mid 2000s and spent a lot of your
Oh, that
time
hurt
on
my
the
ears.
deeper parts of the internet, there is a good chance that you remember this iconic sound and visual. Seems like a basic Flash animation, but quite a number of people were talking about it at the time, and there's a chance you were one of those people who clicked on this wondering what all the fuss was about. Why does
I remember
something
that.
so useless exist? And then it hits you like a train. Now there are more windows popping up displaying the same animation, and it's much louder. And you can't press the little X on your browser because the windows are moving all over the place. And when
Do
you
you
do
remember
catch
that?
one, the windows just multiply. You try using Alt F4 and Control Q, but that doesn't shut down your browser, it just creates even more of these windows. Before you know it, there are dozens, if not hundreds of browsers just bouncing around your screen. It's too loud to even concentrate. No hotkeys or buttons work anymore. Your computer is using so many resources, it can barely operate at a functional speed. But you didn't know any better. A YouTube comment told you about
I remember
this,
that
and
very,
its
very
sense
well.
of urgency just really picked at your curiosity. But now you wish you had just done what you've been told, and now there's no escape. You forcefully shut down your computer by pressing hard on the power button. And now everything seems to be back to normal. But then you realize that history paper you left open, it's due tomorrow, and you never got a chance to save. And now all of your hours of hard work is gone. You really are an idiot. You really shouldn't feel all that bad though, as you are not alone. The You Are an Idiot Trojan horse, also known by its official name Offiz, infected as many as 100,000 computers.
Hello,
And it was
Mako.
now
Help what?
making
Help
its
with
way
what?
around the internet as a topic of heated discussion. A subject people immediately regretted becoming acquainted with, its
Yeah.
presence just continued to grow. It wasn't long until people were claiming that their entire hard drives were being permanently erased and damaged beyond repair. What exactly was going on? How did the story of You Are an Idiot go from exhausting tech support threads within online forums into becoming
remember I broke
an
my computer
internet
with that shit.
legend? I think answering this question is what makes this particular computer virus very interesting. The answer is, we don't know. This malware found itself infiltrating thousands of machines and consequently becoming a meme in the 2000s, yet nobody knows where it came from, who created it, or why. The origin of You Are an Idiot is one filled with mystique. At this point, it was just so long ago, and now little record survives. But with the information we do have, we can formulate theories and get a general idea of what most likely happened. So where do we think You Are an Idiot came from? Well, properly answering that question requires a bit of historical context. We need to go all the way back to the year 2002. The internet is still in its fledgling phase, with the vestiges of the 90s, but it is growing at an alarming rate, as well as getting smarter and more sophisticated every day. This goes for both the technological aspects of the internet, as
Booba,
well
booba,
as human
booba, booba.
behavior. The internet is becoming more because people are demanding more, for better and for worse. Not only was it improving on user convenience, it was learning to solve problems users had been yearning to get fixed for years, as well as solving problems users didn't even know that they had. But this came at the expense of creating new problems, some of which were previously almost unheard of. Malicious programs were becoming smarter and more difficult to combat, as malware developers were learning from their past mistakes. And You Are an Idiot was a symptom of that. But to really see how and why this was the case requires going into detail on how the virus rose to prominence and how it actually worked. The earliest form of the program showed up in early 2002,
Hi,
originally
Techno.
known by its more official name Offiz, and it first appeared on a website. The website in question is debated, as secondary sources of the time either lack information or just completely conflict with each other. Though what seems to be the most plausible theory is that it came from what I like to call an ooh la la website. This is a PG-rated YouTube video, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. But it makes perfect sense why you would
It's
want to
good to
put a
see you
malicious
too.
program here. It is a great place to quickly gain notoriety. I mean, adult websites have been around since forever, since the internet barely even existed. Naturally, this is the kind of website that is going to attract a lot of people. People who, in the present moment, are desperate, are in a certain mood that makes them do stupid
Porn.
things they otherwise wouldn't do, like click on a dangerous ad. This would be what ultimately got people talking about it. But the program wouldn't really start to take off until several months later, when it is reposted on a new website, youdon'tknowwhoiam.org. This is the earliest confirmed record of You Are an Idiot's existence.
They horny fuckers.
Anything before that is speculation, but this we know for sure. And it's at this point where online forums start talking about it. But the aforementioned theory does make sense in tying all this together. Because at the
If
end
you
of the
watch
day,
my
how
stream,
did
you'll
anyone
get context to
even know
what
that
I'm
this
saying.
weird, long domain name existed in the first place? So what did the virus actually do? Well, it wasn't technically a virus at all. It didn't use your computer to replicate itself and spread to other ones. It was a Trojan horse, a program that
True.
pretends to look nice and innocent, but causes harm to your computer once you activate it. But of course, the vernacular for layman computer users is to call anything malicious a virus, so people just stuck with that. We mentioned that this
I'm doing
virus was
great.
one of
How are
many
you, Techno?
components which formed from the early internet's ongoing evolution, and that's because it took advantage of a relatively new technology that was only becoming more complex by the year. This technology is called JavaScript. This wasn't just writing code. This was the closest thing you could get to making something that was alive, something that could almost think for itself. With JavaScript, you were playing God on the internet, so why not use it to cause mayhem as well? But this virus didn't just take advantage of that. It also had another somewhat new and growing technology under its sleeve, the Flash Player. Combine
Hell
these
yeah.
two forces
Well, now you're chilling
and you
with
are
me.
virtually unstoppable. Any user curious enough to click on the website's window would be greeted with the famous animation we've all grown to recognize. Thanks to the JavaScript, any further attempt to exit the page, whether it be by refreshing or clicking the X button, will spawn 6 more smaller windows displaying the same animation, all playing at once. You're not getting off that easy though. The script has programmed the windows to bounce around the page, so good luck exiting out. And even if you do get rid of one, 6 more will pop up once again. You now have 11 windows on your computer calling you an idiot, and your speakers are just getting louder. You try using some hotkeys to forcefully shut down your browser, but now you just have text windows calling you an idiot as well. Before you know it, the windows have multiplied exponentially, and your computer's resources are being used up. Your system is so slow you can barely even move the mouse anymore. You can't even open Task Manager, it's so slow. Now you have no choice but to take the last resort and shut down your computer through physically pushing the power button. Word was now really getting around about the program, whether it be from those trying to warn other users about it, or
Good.
through dares
I'm glad you
and
like
chain
chilling with me.
letters. Whatever you do not go on youdon'tknowwhoiam.org. Of course,
like
who
chilling
would
with you
listen to
too.
such a thing? Its notoriety led to multiple variants of the virus to be created, which of course led to rumors and conjecture. Many users claim that the program would even delete all the files from your computer and cause irreversible damage. But it had quickly come out that these claims were false, at least for the version of the virus directly from the website. But at the same time, they kind of weren't. The virus may not have gone in and deleted stuff itself, but its invasive existence often left users with no choice but to jump ship. The damage was indirect. Users were typically forced to shut down their computer. Of course, things would be back to normal after that, but if you left something open that you didn't save, you were out of luck. In some cases, your
These are TikToks that will make you
I'm done
rethink
with
your
that video.
whole reality.
Now, it's fairly common knowledge to most people that the most painful way that a human could possibly die is from being burned alive. But having your body be burnt to a crisp isn't even the most terrifying part about this. If you manage to keep consciousness while this whole thing is going on, you will realize that your eyes will actually start to melt while you are still awake.
I'm back, it's your boy FITTI to the E, and today we're watching this compilation together.
Booking Ghost Kiss Me smiled. Sharing the room or bed.
No, his eyes hurt.
Unintentionally disturbing characters from children's shows, Part 1. Nosy Bunk from Jigsaw was a mute character who tried to solve a multitude of puzzles during the show. Limbo from Sesame Street was a Muppet made up of 2 floating eyes and a mouth over a black background, speaking with a deep and calm voice.
Let's count to 10.
Him from the Powerpuff Girls was the secondary antagonist of the show and the devil of the world.
That second one was scary. Like, why was his voice like that? Let's count to 10. I'm not gonna lie, him from Powerpuff Girls, I used to watch that.
This hotel is so haunted, it had actor Jim Carrey fleeing in the middle of the night. This is the infamous Stanley Hotel.
Spoopy.
The Stanley Hotel is most commonly known as the hotel that inspired Stephen King's The
Stream
Shining.
is good, awesome, hello.
Yep, this one. The Stanley Hotel sits in hauntingly beautiful Estes Park, Colorado. It was opened in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley. It's called the Disneyland for Ghosts. Recently, a guest
How was
caught
your
this
meeting?
ghostly
My
woman
mum
in the
stayed there
window while
once.
taking a photo of the hotel's entrance. Here's a closer look. If
What
you've
the
seen The
hell?
Shining, you know the infamous room that Danny is told to avoid. Well, that room is based on room
At that
217
hotel.
at the Stanley. Stephen King stayed there himself, and it's reportedly haunted by Miss Wilson, one of the Stanley's original housekeepers in the 1910s. She's an old-fashioned type of woman and doesn't approve of unwed couples sharing the room or bed. Couples have said they felt a cold force in between them at night. And even reports of waking up to the male's belongings and suitcase packed up at the door. She's like, get out. A notable guest of room 217 is actor Jim Carrey. The hotel was a location for Dumb and Dumber, and during filming, Jim checked into room 217 for a stay. And only stayed for a few hours. In the middle of the first night, he ran down to the front desk and demanded to be moved into another room, saying that something had happened and he did not feel safe in that room. When the front desk told him that the hotel was fully booked, he left. To this day, no one knows who or what Jim Carrey saw in that room that night. Jim, we really want to know. Please? The hotel's staircase is considered a spiritual vortex, and another spirit was caught on camera pictured here. And the haunting twins from the Shining film, that ties into the Stanley as well. Guests staying on the 4th floor frequently report hearing children running, laughing, giggling, and playing. And who is that? Is that a person? What's going on here? And lastly, a ghost of a cowboy haunts room 428 and has a flirty presence. He's been seen standing at the corner of the bed and appears mostly to women. Some guests have even reported feeling the sensation of a kiss on their cheek. I had no idea that ghosts could kiss. If a booking ghost kissed me, would I immediately pull
Aw,
away?
thanks, cutie. Techno.
I might linger. A lot of you requested the Stanley, so I want to know, do you all have any spooky stories there?
Yo, she
or
getting me
would you
tight,
be
bro.
down
Shut
to
up.
stay?
Like, what is she talking about? At first, I was interested, listening, and then she's talking about, if a ghost kissed me, maybe I would actually. Like, shut up, bro. I don't care.
So we all know about Smile Dog, but have you guys heard of Smile Owl? Disclaimer, this video is for entertainment purposes only. Creepypastas are not real. Or are they? A young man wakes up in the middle of the night with a really bad taste in his mouth. But it wasn't like a bad breath taste. It was more like a very, very sweet taste. He went to the bathroom and brushed his teeth, but it didn't take away the taste. Then he noticed that there was a white substance on his
Someone
tongue that
came in
wouldn't
his
come
mouth.
off. No matter how much he brushed his tongue, the white substance just would not come off. He walked back into his bedroom, and when he looked out the window, he
White
saw this.
substance.
An all-white owl staring at him. The young man and the owl locked gazes.
It's
You already
white,
know what
too.
I'm
It was
thinking.
something very strange. The owl smiled, and in its mouth were human teeth. After the man realized that the owl had human teeth, he started feeling a very strange sensation in his tongue. What happens next would change his life forever. Part 2 of Smile Owl. After the man and the owl lock eyes, the pain is unbearable at this point, and the owl is still staring at him smiling. So the man does the only thing that he can think of, and he cuts off his tongue.
What?
He tosses the tongue and it lands in his bedroom. He hears a noise that sounds like wings flapping in his bedroom. He goes
Permacom,
to
bread
look, and
boy.
his tongue is gone. The owl is still outside, only this time he has a tongue in his mouth.
Man, the whole time I thought this man was about to be a G and, kill the owl, like use the knife and stab the. Bro cut off his own tongue. Well, thank God I'm in America, so you know, I would just grab a shotgun. Like,
These are the most disturbing things found in food, part 1.
Okay, so everybody watching this video definitely had a Capri Sun.
100%.
But after watching this video, you would definitely never have another one again.
I never
In 2016, a young boy told his dad that the
Has
juice
hey,
wasn't
have you
coming out
guys
of the
ever
Capri
seen
Sun packet.
People Under the
So
Stairs?
his dad then cut it open, and
The
what
movie.
they found inside will make you sick to your stomach.
Anybody?
I'm about to yak. Oh no.
So next time you go and drink a
That's
Capri Sun,
disgusting.
you might be drinking fungus instead of Capri Sun.
That's nasty. Imagine. Bro, that would be the biggest lawsuit of 2023. Best believe your boy would pop back up in the new video. Gucci Mink Coat like, what's cracking, gang? It's your boy FITTI to the E. Cuban links crazy around my neck. Gucci beanie. Just $20 million from Caperson. These motherfuckers had fungus in my drink. Trying to get me sick and shit? Hell no.
We might have to check that out. I want to see if I can find it on YouTube. It's really weird.
Best believe I'm not letting you in my house. And if you come in,
Disturbing facts that will ruin your day, part 16. If you have died around your cat, it is likely to start eating you in less than 24 hours, starting from cheeks and eyes.
what?
The green falling code in the Matrix is just lots of sushi recipes.
Oh, that's
A woman
hilarious.
being arrested for wearing one-piece bathing suits in the 1920s. By the time you reach the age of 18, on average, you have 3,300 weekends left in your life.
Damn, my weekends are running out. I wonder what I can do to increase them hoes.
These are some extremely unsettling facts. And I
Part
found all of
25.
these on Reddit. In the 1982 film Poltergeist, there's a scene where actress Jo Beth Williams is in a pool. And when she's in this pool, she starts to realize that corpses are all in the water, and they start to come up and attack her. Now to us, it just seemed like another amazing scene to add to one of the best horror movies ever. But this scene has a dark twist to it. You see, in the filming of this scene, they used real corpses. And actress Jo Beth Williams had no idea about this. And it genuinely adds another level of terror to this movie. The Wizard of Oz is one of the best known movies of all time. It follows Dorothy and her dog Toto as a tornado comes and takes them away from their home in Kansas. But this movie has a very creepy urban legend behind it. In this specific scene of the movie, you can see Dorothy and all of her friends going down the road. But if you look deep in the background, you'll see what seems to be a human hanging from a tree. And finally, scientists have made a disturbing discovery. But before I get into that, if you guys want a really sweet surprise, go ahead and peep my bio. But anyway, scientists have made a very scary discovery in the glaciers of the world. Scientists have discovered that there are several diseases that are frozen within the ice of glaciers. I know what you're thinking.
It was
it's
actually
frozen,
somebody
we don't
who
have to
hung
worry about
themselves
that.
in the
But this is
back.
a problem because the Earth had started to warm up at a very steady rate since 2015 especially. And thus, if these glaciers melt enough, it will release these viruses and diseases
Backstage,
into
so
the earth.
sad.
But look, that was really negative, and I'm sorry about that. And if you want something more positive, make sure to go peep my bio. But I guess that's really it.
Bro, the Wizard of Oz is just always have some weird
Under the
lore
Stairs.
or weird background, something going on. What's go with this movie, bro?
If you're thinking about ignoring your gut instinct,
Trust your gut
Here
instinct.
are 3 reasons why you should trust it.
Under
Reddit
the
user
Stairs.
Kylan13 said that he went out on a couple of dates with the girl, but he got a weird vibe from her, so he didn't stay in touch. She stabbed her next boyfriend 2 months later. Megan said that she was being pursued by a man. He kept coming into the bar that she worked at and was constantly asking her out. Directly, there was nothing wrong or troubling about him. She just got a terrible feeling whenever he was talking.
How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. You're about to see some of the most mysterious videos going around the internet. So smash that subscribe button right now and get ready for some creepy content. Just like this.
A spine-tingling video recently emerged from the Facebook page 103.1 Brigada Marty City, a radio station that received a genuinely hair-raising submission from one of its listeners. Captured in an unknown hospital, a patient started filming after hearing some strange noises. Take a look at what they caught on film. Watch Watching that again, as they scan around the room, they spot a set of legs under a bed at the end of the row. But when they look up, there's no one there. Many have been quick to embrace a more paranormal explanation, positing that these legs may belong to a ghostly presence. Hospitals, with their history of life and death, have long been regarded as prime locations for ghost sightings. The intense emotions, profound experiences, and sometimes tragic outcomes that occur within hospital walls contribute to the belief that residual energies or spirits may linger. Tales of ghostly nurses, phantom patients, and eerie corridors have fueled the idea that hospitals serve as conduits for paranormal activity, making them a subject of fascination and trepidation for many. So is this really a ghost caught on camera? Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. Here's an odd one shared by a woman named Julie Hogarth Williams over on Facebook. In the photo Julie posted, two young children can be seen innocently playing around. One of the kids is reaching out to touch a television. But what captures immediate attention is a mysterious hand seemingly emerging from the TV itself. Julie provided some background to accompany the photo, sharing a deeply personal narrative. Her father had passed away at the age of 52, 5 years before the birth of her youngest son, Jai.
Spooky.
She firmly believes that the hand in the photograph belongs to her late father,
Hi,
watching
Asim.
over her children. While some might find this eerie, Julie finds it comforting, citing her familiarity with paranormal activity. A particularly striking detail that Julie noted is that her father always wore a gold wedding band. The hand in the TV appears to be wearing a distinct ring.
Baby, your hand's on my booba.
She also said that the TV was off at the time and that it wasn't casting a reflection.
Get your ass over here.
So the question that lingers is whether this photograph indeed captures a moment of a grandfather watching over his family.
Get your
from the
ass over here.
afterlife. Regardless of one's stance on the paranormal, the story adds a touch of sweetness to the eerie image, leaving us all to ponder the mysteries that lie beyond our comprehension. A video shared to our Slaptam subreddit by a user named Zombie Paranormal has been causing quite a stir across the internet in recent weeks, and it's not difficult to understand why. The clip, which has since gone viral, seems to show a chance encounter on a late night stroll.
Oh, this is scary as fuck.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of extra info on this clip, but that hasn't stopped it from spreading throughout TikTok, with many commenters noting just how eerie the encounter is despite very little actually happening. So let me know if you've seen this clip before, and do you find it creepy? Drop your thoughts down below.
Fuck, that gives me chills, dude.
Chicago, a city steeped in history, culture, and it seems its fair share of
Fuck that.
legends. Among these tales, none has captivated the imagination quite like that of Resurrection Mary, a prominent figure in the realm of vanishing hitchhiker folklore, a narrative that spans across cultures and regions. Residing in Resurrection Cemetery,
I know,
located a
right?
few
Her
miles
mouth is black
southwest of
too.
Chicago in Justice, Illinois, Resurrection Mary is considered the Windy City's most famous ghost. The legend of Resurrection Mary has been whispered through the decades, with the story tracing back its origins to the 1930s. According to reports, several men driving along Archer Avenue, which runs between the Willowbrook Ballroom and Resurrection Cemetery, have claimed to pick up a mysterious female hitchhiker. This enigmatic young woman, dressed in a white party dress, has been described as having light blonde hair, blue eyes, and sometimes a thin shawl. She's known for her quiet demeanor. As these drivers near Resurrection Cemetery, the hitchhiker inexplicably vanishes into thin air, leaving behind a perplexing tale. Richard Crowe, a self-proclaimed full-time ghost hunter, has collected numerous reports of Resurrection Mary, spanning from the 1930s to the present day. Her legend endures, casting a shadow over Archer Avenue. The story of Resurrection Mary begins with a fateful night at the O. Henry Ballroom, now the Willowbrook Ballroom in Willow Springs, Illinois. As the tale goes, Mary had spent the evening dancing with her boyfriend. However, an argument between them escalated, leading Mary to storm out of the ballroom. She began walking up Archer Avenue, but her journey took a tragic turn when she was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver. The heart-wrenching discovery of her lifeless body devastated her parents, who laid her to rest in Resurrection Cemetery, clad in a beautiful white dancing dress and matching shoes. The hit-and-run driver responsible for her demise was never apprehended. The legend of Resurrection Mary persists, punctuated by reported sightings and eerie encounters. In 1939, Jerry Palouse recounted an encounter with a woman he believed
Need my
was
vape.
Resurrection Mary. They danced and had a few drinks, and she requested a ride home along Archer Avenue. Yet as they approached Resurrection Cemetery, she vanished, leaving Jerry bewildered. Over the years, numerous incidents involving Resurrection Mary have been documented. From appearances at nightclubs to encounters with cab drivers and motorists, the tale refuses to fade into obscurity. In 1976, her alleged handprints were reportedly burned into the cemetery's wrought iron fence, although cemetery officials dismissed the claims as the result of a truck damaging the fence. The mystery surrounding Resurrection Mary's true identity remains unsolved. Some researchers have attempted to link her to Mary Bregovi, who died in a 1934 automobile accident in downtown Chicago, although this theory presents its inconsistencies. In recent years, there has been growing interest in the possibility that she might be Anna Maria Norkus, who met her tragic end in a 1927 auto accident while returning home from the O. Henry Ballroom. Resurrection Mary's enigmatic presence continues to cast a haunting aura over Archer Avenue, reminding all who travel its path that the line between reality and the supernatural can blur in the most unexpected of ways. The legend endures, leaving those who dare to ponder its mysteries with more questions than answers. In the age of social media, the unexplained and the supernatural often find their way into the spotlight, captivating audiences worldwide. One such case that's left
Why did
TikTok
you mute the
users on the
stream?
edge of their seats involves a user known as Maddie Marga Racy, who appears to be living in a house plagued by eerie paranormal occurrences. For some years now, Matt has suspected that his home might be haunted. Strange and eerie occurrences have been spooking the family. Things like eerie whispers,
No,
objects
why is it bad
moving, and
timing?
lights turning on and off are all frequent events in this family home. The activity eventually became so frequent that Matt was able to
What are
capture
you
a lot
talk?
of the
What?
incidents
No,
on
baby, no,
camera
you're fine.
and
I'm
post them
talking to stream.
social media. In this first video, he recounts an incident while engrossed in a game of Call of Duty.
Bro, so I'm playing COD. I got my headset on. I got 1 ear on, 1 ear off. And I hear somebody whisper in my ear, bro.
No, why is it that timing? Oh, okay. What are you talking? What? No, baby, no, you're fine. I'm talking to Steven.
This happens.
So that's how I know. There's something in this room. There's something in this house. There's a ghost, and I've been saying it for years. And look at the drawer, you know.
The chilling saga continues.
Oh my
in
God, this
second
fucking
video, where
Steven
Matt,
stream.
once again engrossed in his video game, makes a startling discovery.
Look at this. Bro. Nobody is home. My family is in Cancun, bro. You gotta be kidding me.
A nearby door eerily closes by itself, prompting him to investigate further.
You gotta be kidding me. Bro! What the
As he ventures into the hallway, flickering lights downstairs catch his attention.
Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? What the
Descending the stairs, he enters the bathroom to find running water in the sink, a perplexing sight for someone who's supposed to be home alone. His unease intensifies when he
Oh my
notices
god,
a
this
door
fucking
open
Steven
that he
stream.
swears he had left securely locked.
Why is this door open?
What do you keep looking at?
What the is going on?
Moving so much.
Third video paints a similar harrowing picture.
I'm playing COD, my whole PlayStation turns off, and this door opens up by itself.
What is that even from?
The lights are once again flickering. This time he even shows the switches for the lights.
And the light's going again.
My tooth hurts. I'm getting
And the
crabby.
light's going again. And right there is the light switches to that light.
He investigates further.
Nobody's home. Oh my god.
Eventually, Matt decides to leave his house. While outside, he sees this.
Tomorrow I'm going into the dentist.
Oh my god. Did you guys just see that? Bro!
In a subsequent video, Matt captures more strange activity while watching TV.
I'm sitting here watching the games, and I heard what sounded like this stove open and close. I'm not even around, bro. That shit 1000. I know what it sounds like when the stove opens and closes.
Bib, stop.
The situation takes a peculiar turn when Matt reveals that a paranormal professional advised him to cease filming these incidents, as it could potentially anger the alleged spirits haunting his house further. Matt temporarily relocates to his girlfriend's house, leaving his sister to confront the eerie events he endured.
I'm sorry my tooth hurts so bad I'm being a bitch.
My house for a little bit, and I've been staying at my girlfriend's house.
The videos have left viewers with an unsettling mystery. What precisely is happening in Matt's house? Today,
So bad I didn't do
updates
it.
have emerged regarding the ongoing paranormal activity. One can only hope that Matt finds answers soon and ultimately the peace and solace he seeks in his own home.
What?
Tooth pain is the most horrific thing. I would not wish it on my worst enemy.
A recent TikTok video uploaded by user Annalise VD Westwe has viewers spooked. The video features some home security footage recorded on December 12th, 2023 at the uploader's residence. At first glance, the video appears to be ordinary security footage. However, it's what unfolds in the first few seconds that has viewers on edge.
Holy fuck, I need to take some
Strange
Advil.
shadow appears out of nowhere. Viewers are split on this one. Some say it's nothing more than a classic bug on the lens, but others
It's 'cause
are
I'm laying down and all the
convinced,
blood
noting
is
that the
rushing
shadow
to it.
appears humanoid in shape. So what do you think? Ghoul or bug? Cast your votes down below. Before we take a look at some unsettling footage captured in Japan, remember to hit that subscribe button, then tickle that little bell icon there and turn on all channel notifications. That way you'll be in the loop every time we drop our scary and creepy videos. A series of videos posted on TikTok by user CBlueSM has left viewers both fascinated and spooked. Filmed somewhere in Japan, these eerie clips document what the homeowner believes to be paranormal activity in their residence. For some time now, the homeowner has harbored a belief that their house is haunted by an otherworldly presence. In an attempt to document the inexplicable occurrences, they've embarked on a series of experiments to capture evidence of the supernatural. The first video, filmed in an undisclosed location,
Hi,
shows the
welcome
uploader
back to my
navigating
channel.
through the
Today I'm going to be
house.
eating a...
Suddenly they hear some strange footsteps.
What the actual fuck?
In the second video, the TikToker stands at the top of a staircase and knocks a few times.
I don't know what the
seemingly
fuck any
trying
of
to
this is
establish
from.
communication with any entities that might be present.
Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm going to be
Motion
eating a
sensor
fat
light.
schlong.
Click on.
Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm going to
One
be
of the most
talking about...
intriguing videos features the uploader using 2 rolls of toilet paper on a stick, positioning it between the walls of the staircase. The toilet paper unravels seemingly of its own accord.
I swear to
suggesting an
God, this
unseen
shit's broken.
presence at the bottom of the stairs. But the enigma doesn't end there. Another video portrays what appears to be a spirit engaging in a game of
That's
Jenga,
fake, what?
defying the laws of the physical world.
すごっ。じゃあ俺ね。これいいや。よいしょ。次、カイ君。あ、いや、豪快すぎるって。
In this final experiment, something quite extraordinary transpires.
汚してもいいし。これかな。うわっ。え、ちょっと待って。風呂さん、風呂終わったよ。でもありがとう。すごい素敵。すげえ。これ一生撮っとこう。
Unfortunately, these videos lack substantial
What kind of
context,
fucking
leaving
bathtub
viewers
is
to
that?
speculate about the nature of the supernatural events depicted. As the mystery deepens, many are left hoping for answers that may one day shed light on these eerie encounters. Until then, these videos continue to captivate and unsettle TikTok users, reminding us that the realm of the unexplained is often stranger than we can even imagine. Some of you may not realize we've launched a brand new second channel. It's true crime, it's paranormal mysteries, it's standalone cases that go more in depth. Here's a little snippet.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know that was in the fucking movie. I hope I don't get in trouble for that. I didn't know it was like that. Thank you for the follow. No, he said splinter. He said he had a splinter in his hand. Posture check, hydrate, I will do both. I didn't know it was like that, you guys. It's on YouTube, though. He said a blinker fluid. Rob, he said a blinker. He said a blinker had robbed his door. Like on a car, a blinker on a car, a stinker. He said a stinker. Big mommy hug, please. Yeah, it was a good one. That was my childhood scary movie that haunted me when I was little. Bing! Alright guys, I'm gonna go to sleep. I love all of you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? If you haven't already, join the Discord. Good night, my babies. Be good, okay?